And we are live with another episode. Okay, and we are live with another episode of BS Busters. Thank you for joining us. I am Mr. Red Fox, and I am joined by
Bonito. Glad to be here on another one of these BS Busters.
Yes. And just a little bit of early news. Apparently, my mother is rehabbing relatively quickly, so I will soon enough not have to be at her house probably in the next week or so. So either this week or the next week, I will be able to be back in my own place and be able to resume our normally scheduled programming. So that's good for me. So with that being said, let's get into some of this news. So I guess the big news in gaming this week, we've got a few big news stories, but I guess the big one, I guess we'll do the biggest one first, which is Sony apparently, after hearing the uproar people had about how all of these old ass games that people want to play on their new hardware have walked back, just shutting down the store entirely, which I don't know why they did that in the first place, why they wanted to do that in the first place. I mean, I know there's a lot of they're spending a lot of money to license those games, but that's a huge amount of money they also stand to gain by making those games backwards compatible digitally. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So why fuck that up? But I mean, this is Sony, so like here's what I've learned with every single console generation. What happens is that like whoever oh, hello Sandstorm McDowell. I'm really quiet here. Well, let me turn up my volume. Is it better? Like that old Verizon thing. Can you hear me now? Okay, so hopefully that's better. But the thing is that like that's a lot of money just left on the table. You know what I'm saying? Unless you're, the only company I've seen that basically had like a very type of a really prominent backwards compatible library and said forget it is Nintendo with into old games that they may have not ever played, back in the day. Although to be fair, at this point, Sony, despite all of their supposed nostalgic stuff, I mean, despite all of that, they had the crappiest retro console, the PS1 Classic. Oh, that was bad.
They didn't have access. I'm not excusing them. I think they should have worked harder to get those licenses, but they didn't have those licenses to the platform. It just showed to everyone that Sony's not necessarily the powerhouse that they actually were. It's because of those licensing, because of the third party.
Yeah, but that could have been handled so much better. Because the thing is, there are a myriad of first and second party exclusives that could have been on the system.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you could have had some of the Final Fantasy games on there.
Yep.
Could have had, what's that game everybody liked? Siphon Filter. I know people like that.
Yeah, those are actually Siphon. I personally preferred Siphon Filter over Metal Gear because Siphon Filter actually had a protagonist that was interesting, and like I personally found Siphon Filter to be, the story was way easier, was much easier to follow than Metal Gear Solid. So I mean, but Sony messed that up. I don't know why. I don't know how you mess up, because like literally not only did they mess up the licensing, but they licensed European version of games for the overseas American version of these consoles. So literally, if you were playing if you were playing, let's say, Ridge Racer or like a racing game, I forget which racing game it was, but a racing game for the system, and you were playing it on a U.S. console, the games were PAL region and not North America, South America, and Canada. So it's like, what? They were 50 gigahertz. They were 50 hertz instead of 60. So it was just like Sony literally just said, well, we put any shit out there, and as long as it has Sony on it, people will buy it. And I'm like this happened because Sony was able to run away with the the ninth gen, with the PS4, or the eighth gen. No, the ninth gen with the PS4, or no, the eighth gen with the PS4. That's, I mean, that's what happened. And it's not right. But whatever. So what do you think the fallout's going to be from this? Sony walking this back.
Fallout.
Yeah.
Well, eventually those stores are going to shut down. That's more than likely what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I think by then they would have had a potentially. I don't. Well, the hope that people are going to have is they're going to have an infrastructure where they preserve a lot of these where they preserve a lot of these Vita, PSP. PSP still shut.
Well, if Sony were smart, they would migrate that shit over.
Yeah, the hope is that they're going to have an apparatus in which they will be able to access these other games. But, the CEO of PlayStation right now doesn't really seem to care about these old games.
Huh.
Probably not going to happen. So we're probably, we're going to be stuck with piracy and emulation.
Yep.
It comes down to it.
Good news. Most of Sony's retro consoles are really easy to emulate, so.
Yeah.
Like PS1, PS2, Vita, PSP emulation, relatively easy to do. So there you go, folks. you're gonna have to emulate if you really want to play this shit. Which is sad because I personally I would prefer to be able to buy these games, even just digitally. Like I'm not one of those people. It has to be physical or nothing else. It doesn't have to be physical. I would personally prefer to just, to be honest with you, digital is more convenient for retro games anyway. And I say this as someone who has a huge library of physical retro games, and a room full of retro consoles at my house. But it's so much easier to do this shit, to play retro games when it's all in one place and you just start up a emulator on the home console and just play the game. And I know people are going to be like, well, look, listen, okay. Let's see, Xenogears is in limbo, but that's not Nintendo's issue. That's a Bandai Namco issue because they're the ones who own that license, if I remember correctly. Here, let me look it up. I could be wrong, but I think that's Bandai Namco owns the Xenogears license. Xenogears. Xenogears was put out by it's Squaresoft. So that's a Squaresoft issue.
Yeah. You think they'll ever release those games, or probably not?
I'm gonna say something that's gonna be sacrilege to a lot of people, but I don't think Xenogears is that good. I don't. I'm not one of those, oh my god, Xenogears is like the best RPG ever. I mean, I'm going to say something. I'm going to take it a step further. I think the best Squaresoft RPGs came out during the 16-bit era. like that was their golden age. Their silver age was the PS1, was the 5th gen era. And then after that, it was their bronze age. And now it's the shit age because it's all just shit. Because to me, like the best SquareSoft RPGs ever made came out during the SNES era, like Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy 4, Final Fantasy 5, Final Fantasy 6. Even the games that just stayed in Japan were better than any of the shit we got here in America during the 5th gen. Live Alive, Bahamut Lagoon, Front Mission 1 and 2. Sorry, Front Mission 1 and Gun Hazard. Like, those games are great. Like, Square Enix made some really good games back in Squaresoft. But, you know, then they got the big head and they, you know, started worshiping at the altar of Sony. And, yeah, Final Fantasy VII sold a lot. But, did Final Fantasy sell a lot because it's that good? Or did it sell a lot because it was heavily marketed? You know what I'm saying? Because I don't think Final Fantasy VII is that good of an RPG. I mean, it's basically a shittier version of Final Fantasy VI. Like, every character in Final Fantasy VI has an analog in Final Fantasy VII, but it's a shittier version of that character in Final Fantasy VII. Like, Cloud is a shittier version of Terra. Barrett is a shittier version of Edgar. Tifa is a shittier version of Sabine. Because, I mean, I don't care how badass you think Tifa is. She can't fucking suplex a train. I mean, she may be stacked and she may be wearing those overalls and that t-shirt, but she ain't suplexing no fucking train. Yuffie is a shittier version of Shadow. Kate Sith is a shittier version of Setzer. Sid is a shittier version of who is he an analog to? Basically, they're all shittier versions of better characters in previous games. And that kind of, like, to me, I'm like, you know, the only thing that makes Final Fantasy VII such a big thing was the huge marketing blitz that Squaresoft and Sony put behind it. Because the actual gameplay, it's nothing special. You know, people say, well, the music's just as good. Like, if you took an orchestrated version of the music from Final Fantasy VII and an orchestrated version of the music from Final Fantasy VI, they're about even. The soundtracks are about even. So that comes down to how you feel about each game. But, like, just from a technical standpoint, you know, the level of care given to them is about the same. So you can't say one's definitively better than the other. I will say Final Fantasy VI has a better story than Final Fantasy VII. And to me, a better villain. Because Sephiroth is just annoying. It's like, why do you want to destroy the world? Well, because I'm a clone. I'm a experiment created from a dead alien, and the world must die because I didn't know my dead alien mother. So everybody has to die because you're a mama's boy? Really? Whereas Kefka's a way more interesting character. It's like, why do you want to take over the world? Well, I was taken as a small child and experimented upon, made into a magic knight, and it turned me crazy. But I'm crazy like a fox, not completely cuckoo. I'm also a sadistic fuck. I killed a lot of innocent people, but I was playing the long game, and I became the god of magic. And when people didn't listen to me, I actually took over the world, broke it. So he actually succeeded in his plan. That's pretty badass. But that's just my own personal opinion. So enough about anything else to say about Sony before we move on to George Sherman.
No, that's it. They're still not coming to E3 this year.
Who, Sony? Probably not. But does anyone care? Is anyone, unless you're a Sony fanboy, are you really like, oh my god? Like, no one, even if you're the most hardcore Sony fanboy, no one except the most hardcore Sony fanboys can say that Sony's PlayStation experiences are better than a smaller E3 conference of like an hour. Like, because to me, they're just a waste of time. It's like, okay, so, I mean, why? But then again, I find most of the E3 conferences from everyone to be a waste of time these days. Like, I remember that year where Microsoft announced Forza Horizon 2, and they literally dropped the new Ford Mustang for that year from the ceiling. Or it wasn't the new Ford Mustang, it was the new Shelby. And I'm like, you guys could have spent that money doing so much other shit rather than bringing a Ford Mustang to California, to LA, and dropping it from the ceiling. Like, why would you? Why? Just why?
Yeah. I mean, they could have rented it. Not
No, I'm sure they did rent it, but I'm just saying, like, because, okay, even if they rented it, they had to spend money to get it down there. They had to spend money on insurance because when you have a Shelby, like, Shelby is Ford's luxury sports vehicle. Like, Shelbys are custom built. They're custom built and handmade. Like, Shelbys aren't made at a typical assembly line. They're handmade. Like, individual workers take the individual parts and put them together, which is why they're so expensive. Like, even a lower end Shelby is going to cost you like $80,000. The higher end ones are like 140, 150. So even if they rented it, that's still like a lot of money. And this was when the Xbox One was selling abysmally. I'm like, why are you? Y'all could have taken that money and given it to some indie studios and had them make some indie games for your shitty ass console. Yeah, it's just, that just tells you how poorly Xbox was run at that point. But yeah, so I guess we could. So yeah, I mean, Sony is just. I mean, like, I know some people are like, yeah, Sony, but I mean, does anyone care? Like, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not really all that impressed with Nintendo shit at E3 these days.
Yeah, and compared to, I mean, neither of these companies are doing anything all that interesting, but compared to Xbox, it doesn't seem like they're doing much of anything.
Well, Nintendo's gotten kind of lazy because the Switch is doing well. They're like, well, we don't need to actually, try.
Yeah.
So,
For me, it's why I'm not super into the Switch, is because most of the games I can get on PC, and I just usually get them there instead.
yeah, I mean, yeah, and some of the first party games aren't that good. Like I said, Paper Mario Origami King was disappointing.
Mario games haven't been good to me since Paper Mario.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, the story for the game, the gameplay was kind of iffy to me, but the story kind of kept you going. It's like, why is this guy doing this? What's the point? And then you figure out the story. It's like, this is really dark. I like it. And then they just completely shit the bed with Sticker Star, and Color Splash was them trying to get back, but it was too late by that point. And Origami King, like I said, if Origami King had been a real RPG, it could have been awesome. But they turned it into this pseudo RPG, which, I mean, just whoever is the director of that franchise at this point needs to, like, go sit the fuck down and let someone else take over, because But anyway. That's my own opinion. I know some people will disagree. Which brings us, speaking of companies and people just completely fucking up. George Sherman, who was hired to be the CEO of GameStop and bring it back from the brink of destruction, has quit. He has quit after shuttering, I want to say, like, a whole bunch of stores, firing a fuck ton of people. He quit.
They want to innovate. Look, they want to innovate. They thought their old business model was good enough, and now they're in trouble. So,
Yeah.
Anybody surprised by this?
Yeah. Yeah, they shuttered 462 stores in 2020 alone. And yet the share price kept on going downhill. So basically, but he still got a golden parachute payout. So there you go. But here's the thing. He still, because the shares went up, when he came in, the shares were under $10. And if he had cashed out at that point, he would only gotten $11 million. Because the shares went up to $175, $150 now, he's going to make, if he cashes out, he's going to make $180 million for failing miserably. So at this point, I'm just like, I'm done. Like, there's nothing I can say at this point. Anything you got to say about it? Anything you want to add?
Well, like I said, they relied on an older business model and refused to innovate, refused to expand or recreate the model. So what do you expect?
I mean,
It's a matter of time before they either get bought out and turned into something completely different, or they just completely fold and liquidate their assets.
well, I think that's a part of it. I think that is a secondary part of it. I think the major problem with GameStop is that GameStop came in and they bought up all their competition. And that was the only year that they really made profit. Like, that was the only year where their expenditures were higher than their revenue loss. Since the year that GameStop came in and just bought up all their competition, they bought up all the EB games, all the little, like, local mom and pop, smaller chain, local regional stores. Once they bought up all their competition, that was the only time they were profitable. Every other year they were losing money with all those locations. So overall, like, some locations may have been more profitable than others, but overall the sales were going down. The amount of revenue generated was going down. So at this point, I'm like maybe GameStop should have never bought all those different stores. Maybe they should have stayed as a bigger chain, but smaller than they are now. Because GameStop is just, their business model is so archaic. Like, GameStop owns every single store. Like, it's not a franchise where a franchisor pays a certain amount of money to the franchisee. Or sorry, the franchisee pays a certain money to the franchisor. Like McDonald's, right? McDonald's, you see McDonald's in certain neighborhoods. McDonald's, the corporation, doesn't own those McDonald's, okay? They basically license out the name and set up a supply chain with that, with the manager, the owner of that franchise. And, it's like everyone's got skin in the game. The company has skin in the game because they don't want something associated with their name to fail. and the owner of the franchise doesn't want it to fail because they want to make money. You know what I'm saying? Like, and everyone's getting their money out of it. So it makes a lot of sense. GameStop owns every single location that they have open. It's the most ass backwards and asinine business model I've ever seen. So, nothing to say but this. George Sherman got a payoff. When Reggie Fils-Aimé left, that was a hint that this ship is is screwed. Okay. When Reggie says my body's not ready for this, and he bails, you know it's not good. Okay. And Reggie was there during Nintendo's Wii U, which apparently is like, according to people who don't know shit about Nintendo's history, that's like the worst. That's the worst Nintendo product ever. Conveniently forgetting the the Virtual Boy, which sold far, far worse. But you know, is what it is. So yeah, I mean, anything you want to add before we move on to the next topic?
No, that's it.
All right. Next story.
I'll be right back.
Okay. All right. Our next story is Hogwarts Legacy, which is everything we know about the game thus far. It's being created by Avalanche Studios. I don't know who Avalanche Studios is, but here are the details of what we know. It's coming out sometime in 2022. It was supposed to come out this year, but they pushed it back due to COVID, which I don't think that's the case. I think they just pushed it back to give it more time. COVID is a great excuse these days. Looks pretty interesting. It follows the lore of Hogwarts, but it's not, it's not Harry Potter. It's set in the late 1800s, and you get to attend classes and stuff and learn magic. But, you can create your own character, which is pretty cool. You can be a witch or a wizard. You can apparently also be intergendered or whatever, intersexed if you wish. Which, I mean, the more inclusivity you have in a game, the more people feel like they can create a character that identifies with them, the better it is. Because people want to play games where they can put themselves in the game, or at least an idealized version of themselves in the game, or just sometimes you just want to create weird characters in video games. So that's good. This is WB.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank God, because if EA was making it, I'd be like, this is going to be terrible. And it's an RPG, so, I'm not really interested in it because I don't really like Harry Potter all that much. I'm not a big Harry Potter fan, but...
just want to let everyone else out there know that there's other fantasy out there than Harry Potter.
Yeah, well, what happened to... No, go ahead.
I tell you what, especially a lot of people from my generation, they think Harry Potter's the only fantasy book that exists.
Well, the thing about Harry Potter is Harry Potter is really easy to get into. Like, Harry Potter is really easy to get into, and it's like if you're not into science fiction, Star Wars is really easy to get into. But if you're really into science fiction, Star Wars is shitty science fiction because it's not really science fiction. It's fantasy. It's science fiction where fantasy is used to explain the science behind everything. You know, now Star Trek does the same thing, but Star Trek has some basis of science in it. And we're joined by Jewel Eli Moonstar. Go ahead, introduce yourself, Jewel.
One of those rare times. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, thank you for coming to the BS Busters the Week podcast. I'm Jerry Moonstar, and what did I miss?
Oh, we just talked about what did we talk about? We talked about Sony backing off from dropping all support for their legacy games digitally. They're dropping support for the Vita and the PSP, I think. It's either the Vita or the PSP. I think it's the PSP.
I was going to say that they were trying to drop the PSP and the PS3 and the Vita.
Well, they were going to do all three. They were going to do the PSP, the Vita, and the PS3. The PSP, the Vita, and the PS3. They're
They stopped two of them.
Yeah, it's the PSP. They're keeping the Vita and the PS3 online PSN store. Which really, to be honest with you, Sony could curtail a lot of this shit if they just, like, even if they had to create an emulator that you downloaded, like an internal emulator that you downloaded to play those games on your PS4 and your PS5, that'd be smarter than just dropping all support. Because the way I feel about it is both of these consoles are basically not really consoles. They're micro gaming PCs. So why the fuck wouldn't you just, I mean, like, PCs, just make an emulator for your build. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, that's the thing. I hear this right now that with how PlayStation is going, they basically are saying that they're gaming PC in a console footprint.
But they are a gaming PC.
I know.
I mean, technically speaking, the Switch isn't really a console either. It's a gaming. It's basically the architecture behind.
I was gonna say it's the only one that is trying not to be PC like at all.
No, it's not a PC, but what it really is, the architecture behind it is from the NVIDIA Shield, which itself is basically like a handheld of gaming device. So basically, the Switch is an NVIDIA Shield that can hook up to your TV.
Yeah, it's fully realized.
So, I mean, like, no one this gen has really said, hey, we're going to make a console. No one has a console. They're all micro gaming PCs, except for the Switch, which is a big boy. It's a big boy handheld. That's what it is. It's a big boy handheld. You know, literally, Nintendo. I remember when Jack, the dude who used to be the main guy of PlayStation, said the Vita is going to take handheld gaming out of the ghetto, but which is just kind of racist, but anyway. But Nintendo actually was able to do it with the Switch, because basically the Switch is a big boy handheld. It's like, hey, you ever wanted to play your games on handheld, but you ever want to play console games on your handheld? They did it. You can play handheld games, console games on your handheld. I mean, the problem with that is that, like, personally, just for me, I think some games do better when they're just handheld versus trying to appeal to both experiences. Like, I mean, we recently.
I agree with that entirely, because some things cannot be crunched down into something that is pocket sized.
Well, that's true. I mean, look at.
Metroid?
No, I was gonna say, what's it called? Link's Awakening. The Link's Awakening remake was trash because, like, it's like, okay, what made Link's Awakening so special was what they were able to do due to the hardware constrictions. Because initially it was just going to be almost a as best as we can remake of Link to the Past on the handheld. And they realized Link to the Past is too big and grand of scope to do as best as we can remake on the Game Boy. So instead, we're going to make our own shit inspired by Link to the Past. And I will say, hands down, Link's Awakening deserves to be up there on the pedestal with Link to the Past in terms of Legend of Zelda games. They're both equally, almost just as good as each other. But you know, Link's Awakening is great because of the limitations of the hardware, and just trying to translate that to a home console, it's like if you're taking Link's Awakening and put it on a home console, I'm like, why would you just do that? Because you have all this power of the home console. Why is this so bare bones? But on a handheld, it's perfect because it's like, wow, look at what you were able to do on a handheld. You know, it's kind of like if you are the.
One of the reasons why I have to groan because every time somebody says that the Switch is a handheld, I have to groan because I know it's a hybrid, but people treat it like a handheld, and it really grinds my gears that way.
Well, it becomes an argument of does function denote form or does form denote function? Because here's the thing. If you have a hammer and all you use the hammer for is to crack nuts, and you have no concept of it being a hammer, to you it's a nutcracker. Exactly. Like someone's like handing the nutcracker and you hand them the hammer. To you, that is a nutcracker. Whereas, you know, to someone who has more knowledge of the situation, they're going to be like, that's not a nutcracker, that's a hammer. You're using it as a nutcracker. So to people who don't really, to people who've been off of the Nintendo for years, like maybe they had a Nintendo when they were a kid, and then they went to other consoles, and then they got a Switch. To them, the Switch is a handheld. And that's just the way it is. A handheld that they can also hook to their TV.
I was saying that also brings its own complications, meaning that how it's treated and how it's given certain games in a certain style, which would bring us back to Link of the Past. Link's Awakening, and how sure it's a great game for a handheld, and I'm actually impressed with how it looks and plays, but it feels like it's a pipe, like it's more of a sandwich adventure compared to a piece of adventure that certain Link games are, especially
Exactly.
if you're a 3D fan.
Yeah, it's not even a 3D thing. It's underwhelming. Like, Link's Awakening is great on a handheld. On a home console, it's underwhelming. That's basically all I'm saying. And that's kind of the issue with all of these games that are like, Nintendo's like, yeah. And then Nintendo had the balls to charge $60 for that game. I was like, you guys have nuts of steel. Not brass, steel.
Must be some high quality steel if they're going that route.
I don't know if it's high quality. I do know that you have to be you have to be brazen as hell to charge someone $60 for what is essentially a remake of a handheld game. And they didn't even, like, the little bit of extra shit they added was not enough to justify the upcharge. To me. But that's just my own personal opinion.
At least I could say they were given A for effort and trying to at least make it that way. Though with the extras, I'm saying that at least you could say this is a $40 to $42 game.
I would say 50 would have been too much, but I still would have understood it. But 60, I'm like, okay.
I said
No.
40.
No, because I remember when they re-released Twilight Princess and Link's Awakening, Twilight Princess and Wind Waker. Those games were 50. So,
yeah,
you know, like 50 for an HD remake of a 3D game, I can understand. 40 on the lower end of the spectrum, you know, $39.99, okay. Even on the high end of the spectrum, $50. Okay. 60, get the fuck out of here. I'm sorry. That's when I was like, you know what? No. No. I mean, I know you guys want to make your money, and I'm not begrudging you that, but this is gratuitous.
Well, at the very least, you could at least say that they at least make sure that the game's usually worth your money. Sometimes it's a little overpriced.
I would say for some of them.
Sometimes.
I would say some of them are worth your money. I would say some of them are not. Some of them are, some of them are not. Like, I would say some Nintendo games are definitely worth the full price. If you're talking like a Legend of Zelda game, like a 3D Legend of Zelda game, or like a 3D Mario game, those are definitely worth the $60. I would say some of the other games that they've charged a high price on, I'm like, no, it's not worth 60. Like, I don't think Mario Kart 8 Deluxe or, whatever the fuck they called it, I don't think that game was worth $60. I think it should have been 50.
Yes, it was called that, and yes, I do agree on that.
I think that was a little gratuitous. I think a lot of the re-releases they did on the Switch were just kind of overpriced.
Your mileage may vary.
I mean, okay, like the new Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario 3D World.
I said your mileage may vary because some of those never gotten a good, decent chance because some people are hating on a certain console.
No, I understand that, but like Super Mario World, Super Mario Super Mario 3D World, that game, they added an entirely new mode to that game that adds a substantial amount of new gameplay. So $60, okay, fair. New Super Mario Brothers Deluxe, that's not a $60 game.
Yeah, it should have been 40.
40 to 40, really, it should have been like 30.
Yeah, 30 at the least, 40 at the most. But yeah,
60 is gratuitous.
The tagline of the Nintendo Switch should have been Nintendo Switch. We would like to forget about the Wii U.
No, it should have been, the tagline of the Switch should have been Nintendo Switch. All that shit you dumb motherfuckers didn't buy for our Wii U, well, fuck you. We're going to make you buy it again. And those of you who didn't get it, you're going to pay for it the same price it was when it came out for the Wii U. Fuck you. That's the Switch. Fuck you if you didn't get it for the Wii U. That's the tagline.
I have a big bucket of fried crow I'd like to sell a lot of people, that's for sure.
Yeah, because...
They're laughing at Sony and Microsoft like, man, these guys have no games. They're re-releasing all these PS3 games. And then people are like, wait a second.
Yeah.
It might be the same thing.
Yeah, and Nintendo's doing it. And, to be fair, I'm one of those people. I'm like, look, I talked so much shit about Microsoft and Sony doing it. It would be disingenuous for me to ignore Nintendo doing it just because I happen to like Nintendo's games better. And one thing you could say about me, I try my damnedest to not be disingenuous. So, if Sony and Microsoft were wrong to do the shit last gen, then Nintendo doesn't get a pass just because they're doing it this gen. So, they wrong too. But anyway, let's keep it moving. GTA 6. We know it's coming. We don't know when. But with all that being said...
It's like what? Waiting for the next iPhone. I'm sorry.
No.
It's true.
It's longer than the next iPhone. Because the next iPhone... a new iPhone comes out every 2 or 3 years. Whereas GTA 6, they've re-released GTA 5 like 3 times now. And it's been 6 or 7 years. So really, it's about time, within the next 2 or 3 years, it's going to be about time for them to release a new GTA. Which is plenty of time for them to add some new shit to GTA. So for those of you who play GTA 6, what would you like in the next iteration of GTA 6? What would you like to see? What innovations would you like to see? etc., etc. Seriously, we're not shitting on them just because of whatever reason. Who wants to go first?
I like to see. It seems like they don't seem to. I like them to leave the present day and do something,
Futuristic.
something in the future, but yet, still, basically focus on theoretical future tech.
So you want Saints Row, basically.
Yeah. Well, not Saints Row, but just
but more Saints Row tech wise.
Yeah, tech wise, because I know that they like to stay somewhat grounded in reality. Not, I mean, obviously it's still video games. You do
to their detriment, in my opinion.
But yeah, I just like to see being able to run around an exoskeleton or something like that, an exosuit.
Maybe you can steal one from someplace and use it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, how can I put this nicely? I just would really like for them to, I personally would not like to see a game set in the future, because, like, we already have a game that scratches that itch.
Cyberpunk?
No, Saints Row.
Oh, Saints Row. Yeah.
The Saints Row games already scratched that itch, and once you get to future techie, it kind of falls apart a little bit. If you get my drift.
I was going to say that.
I wouldn't say too far into the future.
That he's. I know what he's saying. That he doesn't want it to be too far in the future. It's kind of like those cute idea innovations of what Fallout thought would be the future.
No, I'll give you an example of what I mean. Okay, Saints Row the Third is just a little bit of future tech. Mostly like just like an interpolation of what they could have in the future, and it's like it gets to be a little bit gratuitous. Like the strength of GTA, in my opinion, like the best GTA games are the ones that do a parody of some type of genre of whatever. So like GTA Vice City kind of makes fun of 1980s cop Miami Vice, Scarface type stuff. GTA San Andreas makes fun of the whole gangster rap scene of the 1990s. GTA 3 is a parody of the silent protagonist in a mafia movie. Like those games work, in my opinion, because they basically kind of they really kind of, how can I put this, they do a parody of something familiar and then do their own twist on it, and it works.
Yeah.
And if they went they'd have to have some really, really good writing for them to pull that off. And to be honest, there hasn't been good writing in a GTA game for a while. Because I think the writing in GTA 4 was trash, and the writing in GTA 5 was also trash.
I was gonna say, in that case, whoever's the writer for GTA, they need a retirement home.
And they need someone else to take care of it. So that's just my own opinion. But if I had my druthers, what I would do what I would like to see in a GTA game is I would like to see I would like to see them either go to the 60s or the 70s, and kind of do like if they do 60s, they could do a riff off of like 60s mafia films. If they do set like if they do the 70s, they could do a riff off of blaxploitation films, like Shaft
Oh boy.
or Coffee Brown, something like that.
Yeah, I I was remembering some old media that was depicting some things, and remember that some people actually did some of that homage in the present day.
I think it would be kind of good. You could totally pull it off because the thing is like you could have some really good radio stations. You could have some future tech, like you get a cell phone, but it's like one of those cell phones that are like
Bricks.
yeah that are in the suitcase, the suitcase phone. But in the 70s,
yeah.
that was the cell phone. It was in the suitcase. Like that could totally work. And I would be okay with that. You could have some awesome music, and they wouldn't have to spend as much on licensing because, you know, the music would be from the 70s or the 60s.
Try to make music based on that.
Well,
Results can vary.
you could get a lot of music. If you do the 70s, there's a lot of really good music that you don't have to spend a lot of money to license from the 70s.
Maybe something GTA based off of based off the 20s or 30s, World War II.
Yeah, they could do that. But then it would be a riff off of The Godfather, which could also be good.
Yeah.
We haven't had a good
into it.
we haven't had a good Godfather game in years. EA actually made two good Godfather games and then just kind of
Peter out.
well, they made The Godfather Part 1, which was actually pretty good. I had the Black Hand edition on the Wii, where you use motion controls to like strangle motherfuckers and throw them off of balconies and throw them into brick ovens to burn to death. It's actually a pretty good game. To shiv a motherfucker, strangle a motherfucker with a garrote. It's actually a pretty good game. And then they did Then they did The Godfather Part 2, which was just ugh.
Blah.
It wasn't very good. For one thing, it had online.
Oh boy.
Yeah. It was during that time where EA was like everything had to have online components instead of just making a good game. And they also did something that was really bad. They killed your protagonist from the previous game in the first scene of the new game and gave you a new protagonist, which was kind of like, what?
F you.
Yeah, that's just lazy. But yeah, GTA. To me, GTA is at its best when they're making parodies of pop culture, of some type of pop culture thing that everyone knows about. And I think if they did the new GTA needs to really kind of like maybe they need to go back to another decade. Maybe they go back to the 80s because it's been hinted that the new GTA game is going to leave the modern era and go back to the 80s, which would be a smart move for them. So, it is what it is. At
least they're not aiming at the pop fans.
If they go 80s, like I'm gonna need a soundtrack if they go back to the 80s that is at least as good as what they had in Vice City, which means they're gonna have to spend some money. They're gonna have to have Michael Jackson because it's the 80s. They're gonna have to have like a lot of 80s bands. Maybe bring back some characters.
Do a lot of work for trying to make that 80s feel.
Yeah, they're gonna have to bring back some of the old characters from the 80s games like Love Fist and Ken Rosenberg and the Whispers and stuff like that. So, it would take some money, but, Rockstar has money. So, And I also hope that their next iteration of GTA Online is its own separate thing and doesn't take resources away from the single player game, which is what happened with GTA 5. Because there's a whole bunch of shit missing in GTA 5 that should have been in this from the single player that should have been in the main game.
Hmm. So, for me, it's kind of hard because, well, if anything, I'm kind of wondering how far how far into the future they're gonna head, or or if they're gonna stay in the 2000s. Because, well, there's a good there's some good theming to work with if you're going for the thousands. I mean 2020 or I mean 2000s in a sense. Like you could go into that futuristic joke that the Matrix, but they already did that. They they could go on, they could go and rip on all the boy bands. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did that stunt too. But I'm just curious of what they'll pull off if they keep in that area.
All right. Well, with all that being said, like I said, I would love to see the next GTA game just really do something kind of interesting with the do something interesting with the franchise. Don't just stick with the same shit over and over again. Um, they can keep heists. So I'm cool with that. So
Yeah.
maybe they can continue that. I wouldn't mind having multiple protagonists, but what would be really cool is if they had like three protagonists, but you get to create one. You know?
As in you kind of liked that triple story thing, but you didn't. But you felt that it could be explored better,
I mean, the
right?
triple story thing was cool in GTA 5. The only problem is that I only liked two of the protagonists. Like, I liked Franklin, I liked Michael, but Trevor can go suck a dick. I hate that character.
If I remember right, Trevor's the one that killed just for sport, among other things.
Yeah, he's kind of an asshole.
Yeah, and and those guys at that made GTA Rockstar thought that we would like this guy. Oh, I do like this guy. I like him to be a bullet sponge for my plus 10 rage.
But I don't know. Like I like GTA. I just think that GTA kind of takes itself too seriously. Like actually bring some humor to the missions and stop trying to be all serious all the damn time. Um, and make driving better. Driving in GTA 5 is just marginally better than it was in GTA 4. And driving in GTA 4 was terrible.
I was gonna say, driving in GTA, yeah, that's like asking for That's like merely asking for a monkey's paw wish to happen. As in, I know that we want better driving, but something's gonna happen if we ever do get better driving.
All right.
Hopefully we'll. Hopefully the result of that will be only crappy mini games that we get to play.
I'm not against mini games in GTA. What bothers me with with the current GTA games, is that they take themselves so seriously, and it's like a lot of things that really like. I personally liked how in GTA San Andreas had those RPG aspects. I liked that. I liked being able to make my character really fat, which would change how your character ran around. Or your character could be really skinny, which made you really fast, but
Your paper.
yeah, like people could knock you down easily and you had less health. Like I liked those little like small. I mean, they're very small, subtle things. They're not like
Simlish.
what?
I said simlish.
No, they're not Simlish level. They're just it's like they're very subtle. Like it wasn't a full blown RPG, but they had small little touches that added some strength to the overall game. Like I said, GTA San Andreas is my favorite GTA game. It's up there, like there are aspects of it that I think are worse than GTA Vice City, and then there are aspects of it that I think it's superior to GTA Vice City. Like Vice City has better music.
How do we get 3 GTA games one generation? And then they're releasing GTA 5 8 times.
Because Rockstar is making so much money with GTA Online because people keep on playing the damn thing. You know, I kept on telling people this. I'm like, don't play GTA Online because they will not release other GTA shit. No, I want to play with my friends. I'm like, I don't know about you, but GTA isn't the type of game I want to play with other people.
Yeah, this is why I was
Like,
getting at with people when I said that certain games are not built for online.
no. Having a GTA game, okay, if, okay, if they made a GTA game where someone could drop into your map as another criminal, and they could spend 30 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour in your world doing crimes. So like you could be doing something, and then they could have like a 5, 6 star alert on them and mess you up because the police are chasing them and mess up your mission. Like that, I'm okay with that. Like I'm okay with like some online interaction in a GTA game. But when I'm playing GTA, I don't want to play a GTA game like online where it's basically GTA Online is like an MMO. I don't want to play a GTA MMO. Especially not the way that Rockstar made it, which is very Wild Wild West, not a lot of rules.
Yeah. You can like rob other people.
Yeah, and even if you set it for like non-player interaction, where you're not like you don't want PvP, like people can run their cars into you, and if they jump out of the car and then let it roll as it hits you, it doesn't count as player interaction because they weren't behind the wheel. So it's like it's an inherently chaotic game. And if you're gonna have a game that's that chaotic, I don't want to play a GTA game where I'm just walking around, dicking around, and people can just go and grief me, which is what happens in GTA Online, which is why I don't play GTA Online unless I'm playing a roleplay server. And that economy is so fucking grindy in GTA Online. Like you can
I
either
was about to say,
spend
grindy is putting it lightly,
you
as
can
in
spend $20 and get like 2 million in-game bucks, and that might buy you a shitty apartment and a car. Or you can grind and grind and grind and grind and grind and grind and get that same thing after putting like 100, like 50 hours into it, a week of gameplay. So like I'm done. Like I'm
Yeah,
tired of.
when you put free to play mechanics in a $60 game, that's absurd.
Yeah. Now, if they want to make the next iteration of GTA Online and make it free to play, and like have that be its own separate thing from from GTA 6, I'm okay with that. But don't have resources that should be going to the single player game going to an online game. I don't want that shit. So but anyway, enough about GTA. Any other stories? Oh, Capcom has finally decided to release the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, which is the collection, I believe. It's you get it's the prequel games for Ace Attorney. So you get the Great Ace Attorney Adventures and the Great Ace Attorney Adventures 2, which are the two prequel games. So you get those two games. So you know, if you're really into Ace Attorney and you like the prequel games, then here you go, folks.
Your cup has now overflowed.
I mean, if you really like the Ace Attorney, like I never was that into the Ace Attorney series. I know, blasphemy, but I liked Apollo Justice because it didn't have Phoenix Wright as the main character. Matter of fact, the first case in that game has Apollo Justice punching Phoenix Wright in the face because he falsifies evidence in order to get a guy convicted. So, yeah. So
wasn't that Apollo that did that?
No. Phoenix Wright did it.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're on to our final part of this segment, which is the part that we all love, which is, of course, unpopular opinion. And you know what? Let's throw asshole of the week in there too, since we have someone who really needs to be called out. So let's do unpopular opinion first. Who wants to go first?
For me, I probably used this one already, but I'm still gonna defend it because I feel like this is probably just one of those times that just is feeling like a hate fire. I still say that Twitter is like a forum post that everybody can talk stuff about and can interact with each other very fast in a small amount of time. I just feel like the moderators need to do better than Facebook.
I mean, Facebook is pretty. I think Facebook is worse than Twitter, though.
I think you should just be very, very selective of who you are following on Twitter or even on Facebook.
Because, okay, I'll give an example of what I mean, right? Facebook's algorithm, like, you can befriend anyone on Twitter unless they block you, but, like, you can go and look out people and find people. But Facebook's, the way their algorithm works, like, it will basically pair people together on purpose in order to achieve a certain goal, which is very sneaky.
Snake oil-ish?
It's just very sneaky. And not only that, but Twitter, like, if you say something that's blatantly untrue and dangerous on Twitter, they'll actually call you out on it. Like, hey, this dude's telling a bald-faced lie, we're banning your ass. Or you said something that's totally out of line, your ass is you're in the timeout corner. Whereas Facebook, like, people can say, like, some really fucked up shit on Facebook, And
It'll take them
Facebook's
a year to
algorithm,
get to it.
well, Facebook's algorithm will fucking band other people who think like that together so that they can commiserate and marinate and proliferate in their little group, making it even worse. I mean, it's, Facebook
It's
is
like,
trash.
I was gonna say that Facebook, I would say, is like what is like watching a sewer get pushed into a dirty swamp.
I just use Facebook to keep in contact with various people.
Hey, man, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about in general. Because, I had to drop Facebook because I had family members contact me on Facebook. Family members who I don't give a fuck about and don't want to be in contact with. And I was like, yeah, I got to drop this.
What?
For me,
money and stuff?
No, they were just like people that I don't want to be associated with. And so I had to cut their asses off. Like, I just abandoned.
Yeah.
Plus, I had people I went to high school with who I didn't fucking like anyway, who were like trying to friend me on Facebook. I'm like, nope, we're done. So I dropped that shit.
For me, I actually gave up on it, and I only use Facebook at any time for basically games.
I don't even use it for games.
Yeah.
Can't even. They got me on Mafia Wars back in the day. Remember when Mafia Wars used to be the big thing? Remember that shit? That's what I used Facebook for. I spent $50 that I couldn't afford to spend on Mafia Wars back in the day. Not in one time, like over a period of time. So now I'm just like, I'm done.
I was going to say, I'm glad I never spent a single dime on any Facebook game.
So at this point, I'm just like,
help me there. Yeah, so if anything, yeah, Twitter's not a bad system, but their moderators probably need more work at times because some people get really beepy when it comes to how they're worked with. But at least they're better than Facebook.
So
by how much, I'm not sure.
Yeah, for me, Facebook is just kind of like when people say, "Well, Twitch sucks," I'm like, Twitch is bad, but it's still not as bad as Facebook.
I said Twitter because
not Twitch, Twitter. Yeah, Twitter is bad. Twitter is like going to let's see. Twitter is like Target, whereas Facebook is like Walmart. Walmart is worse than Target. Not by much.
A little cold.
Not by much, but Walmart is definitely worse than Target. And I'll tell you how I know. Because if you go to Walmart, here's how you can tell that a place is a shitty place to shop, okay? If you go someplace and the employees don't look like they're happy, they can't even fake it. When they first come in, they're not happy. When they leave, they're not happy. No one looks happy to be there. Like when you ask people for help, sure, let me help you. They're just like, yeah, it's over there. That is a terrible store. Every Walmart I've ever been in, whether it was new, old, freshly hired people, everybody I've ever seen work at a Walmart, they are so unhappy to be there. I mean, it's bad. Now, Target is almost as bad as Walmart. But here's the difference. There are people who enjoy working at Target. I don't think there's anyone who works at a Walmart who's happy working at Walmart. I have not seen them. And I've been to many Walmarts. I know that is anecdotal at best.
So, if anything, I'd say it's like trying to go with a sandwich or a slightly baked sandwich.
I like my Walmart versus Target analogy. Yeah, I think the Walmart versus Target analogy is more apropos. But anyway, do you have an unpopular opinion, Kenoshi?
No, not this week.
All right, I guess it's my unpopular opinion. Here's my unpopular opinion. I watched Nobody earlier this week, or was it last week? It was last week. Yeah, Friday last week. Nobody is the new film from Bob Odenkirk, the guy from the Mr. Show show. And it's basically like a schlubbier man's John Wick, basically.
Mm.
And it's actually really good. It's actually really good. It's really violent. And the reason I like it is because it's really violent and it shows people getting hurt. Like you watch something like John Wick and all these other films and people are in a fight and like no one's bleeding, or if they bleed it's just a little bit of this. Like there's a fight scene in this movie where the main character is on a bus and like he's kicking ass, but he's getting his ass kicked too. And it's like Bob Odenkirk, like there's a part in the fight on this bus where he gets thrown out of a window. Like, and the glass breaks. He gets thrown out of a bus window and the glass breaks. He gets up and the glass is like digging in his hands. And he walks to the front of the bus and opens up the door, gets back inside, closes the door after him, and keeps on fighting. I'm like, God damn, if a dude does that, run. He is not fucking around. He is...
Somebody's rear end is about to be turned into lawnmower clippings.
Yeah, so I paid to watch that movie on Amazon Prime, and it was like $20, but it was worth it because I wanted to see that movie make some money. And since I got my second shot, once I'm clear, I'm going to go to the movies if it's still in movie theaters and watch it in person because it's that good. So if you guys get a chance, go watch Nobody, either digitally or physically if you can, because it's that good. It's really good. It's got some really good fight scenes. Much better than they have any business being. Asshole of the Week is a split for me. It's between Sony and trying to cancel their retro games on their store, and George Sherman for firing tons of people, closing tons of stores, and yet somehow he still gets a golden parachute when he leaves, which is just some bullshit.
If you ask me, shoot the one with the golden parachute. You mother effer. You wanna leave after making a disaster? You're coming down the hard way.
Well, the reason I'm splitting it between the two and not just giving it to George Sherman is because GameStop is a terrible company anyway, and they've been firing people before George Sherman got there. So I can't really put it all on George Sherman.
I was gonna say that if anything, it's one thing to leave a sinking ship, but come on, at least man up and go down with it.
But then, but then you get Sony, and the thing is like, Sony, I mean, for better or for worse, Sony is a major part of gaming. And there's a lot of old school games, like there's a lot of game preservation things. There are a lot of really good games that now the best way to get these games is digitally through, the PSN. And it's embarrassing that there's PS1 and PS2 games that you cannot play on the PS4 or the PS5. So, Sony is just like, I think the preservation of games to me is more important than, some fucking huge ass company, having a CEO bail, because that shit happens all the time.
I know, it's just that if anything, I'm getting sick and tired of those guys doing that.
Well, the only way to change it is to change capitalism entirely, and good luck with that. I'll hold your hat while you go do it. Okay. We'll see what. Look.
I was gonna say, I know that's a tall order and likely impossible, but can I at least complain about it?
You can complain about it. I'm just saying. Look. We'll wait for capitalism to change, or for me to change a light bulb, and we'll see which you'll change first.
Very cute.
But anyway, that's my unpopular opinion. Anyone have any other unpopular opinions before we wrap things up?
This is probably I got an extra one, which is kind of weird, but this is basically to a certain group. So excuse me for this, but here goes. Whoever whoever is effing making this new series of card game animation for Vanguard, you guys seriously are focusing too much on the weird stuff and not about the game, or even explaining it to the people that are that may be new to the game and trying to watch it to see how it's played. At least you're not doing Yu-Gi-Oh levels of cheese, but come on.
Really, I never
That's
thought
a
of
card
Yu-Gi-Oh
game
as
game.
being all that cheesy. I mean, of being all that fan servicey with their cards.
I was I was saying that the that Vanguard's being more cheese and fan servicey with their with their animation than Yu-Gi-Oh with their cards.
All right, I'll take your word for it. I don't really do a lot of card battle games these days, trading card games. I really don't, because
This is the reason why I'm the one that's probably into it the most.
no, well, I like the thing is, I blew so much money on Star Wars and Yu-Gi-Oh back in the day that it's like when other shit came out, I just like for me when it comes to with me and fads, like once I blow a lot of money or attention or time or effort into one part of a fad, like one phase of a fad, it doesn't go beyond that. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
I didn't get into Power
for me,
Rangers.
I consider a hobby and a game if I ever get into something.
Yeah, I didn't get into.
Depends on,
No, go ahead. Sorry.
and I'm saying it depends on which series it goes into. Like for me, I am into card games, and I try to look over the full aspect of it and be careful about how I work with it, and it currently has me led to I don't want to buy into Pokemon. I am definitely keeping it way far back from Yu-Gi-Oh, as far as I can because of how it plays. And I'm not touching Magic the Gathering with a 10-foot pole too.
Well,
So
at this point, the only way you can get into Magic, like at this point, it's hard to get into Magic the Gathering now. Like unless you were there in the beginning or the mid, like getting into it now is just you're gonna get slaughtered all the time.
yeah, I was going to say that I know how dangerous it is to get into Magic. Yu-Gi-Oh! Birds and Bridges would be when it going into a certain card set that basically said you either you first turn kill or you you summon all your cards into nearly half into the game on one turn and say pass turn, and if you can't break it, you're dead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the only thing that's keeping me even interested in card games in a sense is Pokemon and Vanguard, and I'm wincing so much knowing that these two are the only card games that are alive and are the only things keeping me in card gaming.
So you're hanging on by a nail basically, and they're messing up one of your nails.
Pokemon, I can already tell you how bad that is one with one phrase. One KO, well, half your game.
I can see that.
I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh is overcomplicated. I remember, as a kid, kind of being annoyed with Yu-Gi-Oh just for the fact that, you needed so many different cards
Card
in order
combinations.
Well, that's why.
in order to do anything.
That's why usually when people played Yu-Gi-Oh, they would play like custom matches to speed it up.
Yeah.
Because when I was in high school, we would play Yu-Gi-Oh at lunchtime. Because we had an hour-long lunch, and we would play Yu-Gi-Oh at lunchtime. And like, I mean, I didn't really play it, but I saw people playing it. And if you played Yu-Gi-Oh the way it was meant to be played, you'd be like each match would take like 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah, it takes a long time.
So they would do like speed magic. They play it like chess, where you'd have like a certain amount of time to make a move, certain amount of time to do, and you could only have a deck size of a certain type, of a certain size. So basically you could only have between, I think, like 15 to 30 cards, or is it 15 to 25, something like that.
Right
Like
now, the legal amount is 60 to 40 as
No,
deck
that's
size.
how the custom. That's how we custom. Because if you have a huge deck in Yu-Gi-Oh, it actually makes it, unless you have really strong, like a really good deck strategy, it makes everything really hard to play.
The thing
Oh
about
yeah.
Magic the Gathering or Yu-Gi-Oh, unless you have a friend or somebody who has or knows somebody with the patience enough to teach you, don't even bother trying to get into those games.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways to even summon that it's ridiculous, and that's before you count spectral summoning.
yeah.
Synchro, Xyz, Pendulum,
Well,
Rush.
that's that new shit they added with the later editions and stuff. Back in the day, it used to be
Yeah,
special summons, trap monsters, flip
yeah,
summons, and that
and
was it.
considering that they rendered one of those card types useless in a sense,
What
and
trap
that's
cards, trap monsters?
yep, trap cards,
Yeah,
trapish monsters.
that used to be one of my favorite things when I did play Yu-Gi-Oh. Was have, like, I'm telling you something, man. Those Yami Karibos were great. just
Yeah,
just have three of them in your deck, and then have stronger monsters that because they could summon a 4-star monster, and you just summon a 4-star monster, but you'd fill your deck with 4-star monsters that had above average stats for 4-star monsters. It's like, oh, you hit my Karibo, and I summoned my 4-star monster. Sucker.
have some defense and watch somebody cry when they break their hand onto the wall.
I love doing that shit. But anyway, yeah, that's. But anyway, so I agree. Uh, any other unpopular opinions before we wrap things up? Anything you guys want to pimp out before we continue before we end the stream, the cast?
I think we're all set.
All right, that's the end of this podcast. Rate, comment, share, subscribe. If you would like to get in touch with the channel, you can reach me at mrredfoxbsbuster@gmail.com or on Twitter at mrredfox91. That being said, we will have our next podcast next Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. We might end earlier, we might end later. Shit happens. Deal with it.
It depends.
Yeah, but we ended right on the dot today. So with that being said, rate, comment, share, subscribe, and